All right. Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. Let me refresh my YouTube. I believe my mic is on and not muted. So there you go. All right. I am not on camera tonight. I do apologize. A lot of you know I've been struggling with allergies for like 3 weeks now, even a little bit longer. And the meds are helping, but my eyes are flamed up. They look like I have pink eye. It looks awful. So no amount of makeup is going to make my eyeballs look white. So I am not on camera because it doesn't look good. But anyway, I'm fine. I'm glad to see you all here. We got a lot to talk about tonight. There's so much happening. Unfortunately, not too much happening with the Vallow case, but we're going to start there anyway. There is an episode coming up tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, of 48 Hours. All right, and they're going to be talking about the Vallow Daybell case. Now, some of the promos that they've used make me go, come on, guys. It says the untold story of how police locate. It's not untold. We know what happened. But maybe for people who don't follow it quite as deeply as we do, it'll be some new information. So I'm not expecting a lot of new stuff to be revealed tonight, but it still should be good. And we're still going to watch it. It is on CBS on 48 Hours. So if you can't see it live, if you don't have cable or broadcast TV or whatever, you will be able to see it on the CBS website probably tomorrow. So I was going to stream it in Discord like a watch party, but I'm not sure about the legalities of doing that, so I'm not going to do that. But I will look into that and see if we can in the future do watch parties of broadcast TV. But for tonight, not going to do it. I'm going to play it safe. So hopefully you will be able to check it out tonight on CBS. We will talk about the episode probably in the next live stream. Again, I'm not expecting any new bombshell information, but it should be pretty good. You know, they've done a good job so far with their other episodes. So I'm excited to see that. Now, yeah, so that'll be happening, 2 hours from now. So the live stream will be over before that, so it'll give you time to get ready and go watch it. The main thing I wanted to talk about tonight was the Joel Guy Jr. trial. So have any of you seen this trial? So we'll get into that in just a minute. But first, let me say hi to some of the people in the room. People have been chatting for hours in the chat room. So that was kind of fun. Hi, Feeding It, Jess. Kathleen Hensel, nice to see you. Flame Lily, glad you're here. Sophie H., how are you doing? Always good to see you. Jenny McGee, Amy Asef, Curious Cat. Oh, everyone. Catnip, glad you made it. All right, Jennifer Stern. Sorry, scrolling really fast. I'm sorry if I missed anyone. Gulf Coast Girl, hi, how are you doing? How's the birdie? Hi, Turtle Girl. Hi, it's just Robbie. Mira, that's my beautiful daughter. Glad you're here. Hi, Leah, Stacy, Ellen, Susu, Rosie Skies, and everyone else. So glad you are all here. So let's talk about this Joel Guy Jr. trial. Now, I hadn't even heard about this case. Right, this happened back in Thanksgiving of 2016. So the trial has been 4 years in the making. And I caught it the other day because I was scrolling through YouTube. I said, oh, here's a trial. What is this? And I started watching it. And I couldn't stop watching it the whole time. I watched every single minute of this trial. Now, watching trials is something I like to do. But this one was unexpected. So I didn't have any of the background. Right, I saw it like totally cold. Like I was on the jury. Hadn't heard anything. Give me the facts, ma'am, right? It was interesting, to say the least. So the basic story of this case, Joel Guy Jr. murdered his parents, his mother and father, Joel Guy Sr., age 61, and Lisa Guy, age 55, on the Thanksgiving weekend of 2016. And police discovered this several days later when a co-worker of Lisa called to request a welfare check because she hadn't shown up for work and they weren't able to reach her. So the police go in and discover the remains, which we'll get into that, of Joel's parents and a lot of other very curious things in the home. Joel was eventually arrested at his home in Louisiana and charged with their murders. So he was found guilty. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday, the day before, of 7 counts. Guilty with life in prison sentences for all 7 counts. There will be a sentencing hearing coming up to decide whether these will be consecutive or concurrent sentences. But pretty much he's put away for life now. So That's good. Now, some of the curious things that I found about this trial were the defendant's demeanor and the brutality of the crimes. Right? When you're watching, if you watch the trial, it's all over YouTube. I watched it on a local news channel from Tennessee, but it's all over. There's 4 or 5 other YouTube channels that cover the entire trial. So you can find it anywhere, just search his name. But when you watch it and you watch Joel Guy's demeanor while they were discussing the case and showing photos from the autopsies and the medical examiner and forensic pathologist, they're up there describing all of the injuries and the murders. Joel Guy Jr. is just kind of sitting there like, interesting. You see, he's looking up at the pictures, staring at them wide-eyed, and he's not crying or emotional or trying to shy away. He seemed fascinated, absolutely fascinated by these photos and the discussion that they were having. I found that really curious. Now, at first I was like, that's a very strange affect that he's showing. But when we look at the main piece of evidence in this trial, they discovered a notebook in his backpack that was in the guest room of his parents' home where he had been staying over the holiday weekend. And in this notebook, he outlines the entire event. He outlines how he's planning on killing them, how he's planning on destroying the bodies, as well as how much money he thinks he's going to get from their assets and life insurance and all of that. So the entire thing was very heavily premeditated. All right. And when I'm thinking about this, I'm reading through these notes that he wrote, a lot of forensic countermeasures. But what it seemed to me, and let me know what you think about this, it seemed to me that he's the type of person who maybe watched a lot of CSI type TV shows, right? Where he seemed to have some forensic knowledge, but it was very much television forensics. Do you get what I'm saying? It wasn't quite actual forensics. Like, he doesn't watch a lot of trials, and he doesn't listen to a lot of medical examiner reports and autopsy reports, but he got his information from TV. Like, well, on TV they do this, and on TV they do that, so this must work, and da-da-da-da-da. It was forensic information, but not very good information. That's what I got from his notes. But it also made me think that he was just fascinated by this stuff, right? He probably loved these kind of crimey TV shows and watched them all the time. So that explained to me why he was so fascinated by the evidence that they were presenting in court. He was like, oh, I can't wait to see the autopsy photos. Oh, wow, they're showing the ribs. Look at that. You could just see him and almost see his thoughts where he's like, oh, so that's what a rib cage looks like. Wow, look at that, man. Oh, yeah, I see those cut marks. He had that look on his face like he was just absorbing all of the forensics, like he was just fascinated by it. Absolutely devoid of emotion, right? He was not sad. He was not remorseful. He was not, wow, I'm looking at my father's dismembered hands on the screen. I should feel something, but I don't. So that's what hands look like when they're 4 or 5 days old. Interesting. It was the weirdest thing. The weirdest thing. Now, one thing, Katie Elliott in chat mentions the stabbing. All right. Now, I thought that was very interesting. When I first saw the report about how the parents were murdered, there was a complete overkill, and it was all stab wounds. Now, as you know, I would like to think that in another life, or maybe in my next life, I'm going to be a behavioral analysis member of the FBI. Okay, that's what I want to do. And so I pay a lot of attention to criminal profiling. And when it comes to overkill stab wounds, that is almost always and without fail sexual in nature. Okay, now I'm not saying that he had incestuous relations with his parents. No, but there's a sexual undercurrent to this. And I'm like, what on earth could that be? And I could not line it up in my head. I'm like, that makes no sense whatsoever. But I know from everything I've ever read and studied of criminal profiling, that sort of stabbing death has a sexual component. What on earth is going on here? Until we saw his boyfriend get on the stand. Until we saw William McCracken get on the stand. And we listened to William, and we listened to the phone call. And then everything fell into place for me. Everything fell into place for me. Clearly, Joel and William have a more intimate relationship than simply roommates. Just based on their conversation, the phone call. Those are not things you would say to a roommate. Those are things you say to a life partner. Okay. So, and I'm thinking that's interesting. Okay. Because they certainly didn't mention that. The state didn't mention it. The defense didn't mention it. Nobody brought up the nature of their relationship, which I also found kind of fascinating because as we've seen in other trials, that's usually a big deal. Okay. Usually a very big deal. They didn't use those terms. Right? They referred to him as the roommate. But after listening to the phone call, I'm like, okay, I see what's happening here. So what I got from it was that at least part of his whole motive was probably the fact that he was gay and it was maybe not all that accepted by his family. Right, now this is my speculation. Okay, this is not mentioned in the case, it's not mentioned in the trial, it is not a fact. This is my speculation, so please put, big speculation stars on the screen or something. But that's where I got that, and that would explain the stabbing to me. Okay, because a stab wound like that, stabbing wounds like those are very intimate. That's a very intimate way to kill someone. I don't mean sexually intimate, you know what I mean? But that's a right up and in it kind of murder. So there was a lot going on that nobody even talked about during this trial, which I found kind of interesting too. Not that they needed to. There was certainly plenty of evidence. They didn't have to go down that road. But I thought that was kind of fascinating. Yeah, so the notebook, the stab wounds. The other thing that he did, and this isn't something we hear a lot, when the police, and you can watch the body cam videos of when the police first made entry into the home to look for Lisa after the wellness check. They get in the home and they walk by through the kitchen, and there on the stove is a giant stock pot with a lid, and the stove is still on. Now, at this point, Joel had actually left. He had left Tennessee and he had gone back to Louisiana, but he left the stove on with this stock pot on there. And they're like, huh. Now, as I'm watching this, I'm like, pick up the lid. Pick up the lid, but they didn't touch it. And I was like, what is in the pot? And then we found out what was in the pot. He had put his mother's head in that stock pot in fluid on the stove. Now, of course, that's horrifically gruesome. Horrifically gruesome. It's crazy. But then we're talking about, well, why would he do that? Okay, what possible motive could there be to do that? And it certainly wasn't because it's not a Jeffrey Dahmer situation. It's not like, he had his father's head too, but he didn't do that with them. So why would he do that to his mother's head? Oh, thank you, Kindred Spirit, for the super chat. Thank you so much. Yay. I appreciate it more than you know. Thank you. All right, so why would he do this? I think, and this is, again, my personal speculation, I believe that Joel wanted to keep her skull as, like, not a trophy, but I do think if he had feelings for anyone in this family, it would have been his mother. And in his sick, twisted way, having her skull would have been important to him. Okay, so that I think he was trying to boil all the flesh off the skull so he could have a nice, clean skull for his mantle. Who knows what he would have done it. The skull was very important to him. If he just wanted to destroy it, it would have been in the buckets upstairs with the rest of the remains and all of that. That was very special to him. So I thought that was curious that he would do that. Yeah, it was very weird to watch the body cam footage and see that stock pot there and see the oven on and realize what was in it. I mean, that's really hard. That's hard to see. I mean, we hear about this when we're looking at really old serial killer type stories, and you can get it in a historic, very far removed from yourself sort of case. But this happened very recently. It's very creepy, and you're seeing it like real time as the police were walking through, and that was a pretty creepy moment for sure. Little Lady Di, oh, you have a new name, Stitch and Ditch. Great. I'm glad to see your new name. Thanks for letting me know, because I never would have guessed that was you. And thank you for the super chat. That's wonderful. I appreciate it so much. And thanks for being here. Hold on one second. I do have to cough. So I'm going to mute the mic again so you don't have to hear it. All right. So, yeah, this Jess was wondering if he ever spent any time or looked at the body farm. There's a body farm in Knoxville, Tennessee, where they test a lot of decomposition theories, and they use it to get knowledge, forensic knowledge about how bodies decompose. It's possible, if he was into this sort of thing, that maybe he went there. That would be really fascinating to know. Probably not something we're ever going to know, but maybe he did. So, but yeah, he also had the thermostat to the house set to 95 degrees. That's really, really hot. And in his mind, he thought that the heat in the house, the residual heat in the house, would help the bodies decompose faster. Now, what he had done was that he had dismembered them, right? Removed their arms, legs, or mother's legs at the knees anyway, and put them into these giant blue plastic totes filled with water and chemicals, and left them there to decompose. His goal, as he outlined in his notebook, was to break down the remains in these chemicals, run it all through a blender, and pour it down the drain. Okay? I mean, my goodness. And one of the scary, I don't know. I want to say fascinating, but I don't want it to sound like it was enjoyably fascinating. One of the horrifically fascinating moments of the body cam footage is when they're in the master bedroom showing all the stuff on the floor. You see some lights and some bleach and this and that, and there's a blender on the floor. And when I first saw that, I was like, what on earth would he want a blender for? Huh? Who keeps a blender on the floor of their bedroom? And then when they read the notes and you realize what it was for, you're like, oh, good God, no. Oh, my goodness. So, yeah, it was very, very crazy. As Jess said, he also bailed halfway through the process. He did almost cut his finger off during what they assume, or what the state assumed, was the dismemberment process. He injured himself during that. But he also left, right? He had very well laid out plans to completely get rid of all the remains and the crime scene evidence. But instead, he just left. He took off. The bodies were not completely dissolved, I guess was his goal. The mother's head was still in the pot on the stove. The blood had not been cleaned up. The crime scenes were still very evident. And he just took off out of there. So the question that I still have is why? Why did he leave things unfinished like that? Did he know the police were going to show up? Did he realize that someone had called in a welfare check? It's quite possible. So he figured his best bet was to hightail it out of there. So, but yeah, it's a crazy case. They did show a lot of very good footage of the crime scene. And for me, that was, again, horrifically fascinating to see, because one thing that I like and that I've studied quite a lot is blood spatter analysis. I love to look at a crime scene and tell you the story based on the blood spatter evidence. Right? That's my jam when it comes to true crime. Denise used to call me Dexter all the time because that's what I like to do. And there's a lot of information in those crime scenes about that. And I got to pore over those quite a lot, and was able to come up with a pretty good picture of what happened, during the actual murders of his parents. And there was, I think that there certainly was some anger and some viciousness, but there was also a cowardice to them, because he attacked them both from behind. He sort of jumped on them from behind. And then eventually, of course, there were wounds to the fronts of their bodies as well. But when you're looking at the crime scene, you can kind of see this almost surprise attack. He didn't want to look them in the face. He wanted to stab and stab and stab and stab, but not actually face what he was doing. So I do see a lot of cowardice in his actions, and a lot of anger and hatred, of course. But Yeah, it was a really fascinating case. Let me check on some of the questions in chat. There's a lot of questions coming up here. Sophie asked, did he represent himself in court? No, he did not. He did ask to. Right, there was a hearing months before the trial, not too long before the trial, where he wanted the death penalty. He was motioning for the judge to give him the death penalty. And the judge said, well, no, basically, there was a kind of a long drawn out process, but the judge said no. And during the course of that, Joel did ask if he could represent himself. He wanted to fire his attorneys, represent himself, but through some questioning, the judge got him to say that the only reason he wanted to do that was so that he could pursue his death penalty motion. And the judge says, well, no, it's not really going to work that way. So I ruled on your death penalty thing. That's not happening. I can't force the state to give you the death penalty. So can you just keep your lawyers? And he said, okay. So he wanted to represent himself. The judge kind of talked him out of that because of what he wanted to do, because it just wasn't possible anyway. But he really seemed to think that he was capable of representing himself, which we've seen time and time again with these crazy people, Oh, man, it is crazy. Crime Me a River asks, Crime Me a River. Very cute name. I like that. Very clever. Did he want to get caught? I don't think he wanted to get caught, but I think it reached a point where he didn't care. I don't know if he's not a stupid person. He has some level of intelligence, but there's not a lot of street smarts with this guy. Like, if he didn't want to get caught, he shouldn't have left his laptop and his notebook in that bedroom. He should have removed the evidence of his presence in the home, but he didn't do that. He didn't try to cover his tracks. He certainly had no problem wandering around all these stores where they have videos of him buying the blue tubs and the bleach and all this stuff. So he didn't cover his tracks very well. Was that on purpose? Possibly. I would say that more that he just didn't care. And I don't know, he just seemed to be resolved to the whole thing. He didn't really put up too much of a fight. They found him right in his own apartment, so it's not like he was trying to hide that hard, So, let's see. How did he kill both without the other hearing screams? Leah, it does appear from all the evidence that we heard in the trial that he killed his father while his mother was out shopping. And when she got home, either he called her up the stairs because she just dropped all the groceries in the front foyer, went up the stairs, and then he murdered her up there at the top of the stairs after his father was already dead. So he does seem to have been a social outcast. Susu, yes, he was. He was very much a loner type person, used to prefer to hang out in his bedroom rather than socialize, all that kind of stuff. Yep, he was a gifted student. He was not unintelligent. But remember, book smarts and educational smarts are not street smarts. So I think he was lacking in the street smarts department, as we can see from some of his own behavior. But the trial was very weird. From a legal point of view, I thought the trial was strange because the defense kind of didn't do anything. And I'm curious about that. The defense was kind of like, yeah, we're here. They were very unenthusiastic. They barely questioned any of the witnesses. Now, that's something we really don't see. Whether the state will call a witness, the defense's turn for cross, they're like, no questions, Your Honor. And you're like, what? Really? Huh. But they did that with almost every witness. They had a few questions here and there. When it came to the closing arguments, the state put forth a very well laid out closing. They had like a PowerPoint presentation. They were very organized, laid everything out clearly. The defense gets up there and he was like, well, they didn't test the notebook with handwriting analysis. So how do we really know he wrote it? We rest. I'm like, what just happened? What are you doing? They could have tried a few things. Not that I'm saying that they should have, but generally you would see a defense, at least in a closing, offer some mitigating factors. He was the black sheep of the family. He was cut off from the family. They all hated him, blah, blah, blah. They could have come up with some sort of at least mitigating circumstances or anything but they had nothing. Now, even when we see a case where the defendant actually doesn't really have a defense, where you know plenty of stuff, there's no way they can talk you out of it, they still try. They will still put forth something, even if we roll our eyes at it and go, oh, please. But this defense attorney team was just kind of like, nah, we got nothing. Bye. It was really weird. It was very weird. Yeah, his DNA was all over the notebook, but their only defense was they didn't test the handwriting for handwriting analysis. And I'm like, that's not a really strong closing. So I expected that the jury would come back within an hour with their verdict, but they ended up going overnight, maybe because they had a lot of forms. There were 7 charges that they had to get through, and they had to discuss each one. But they came back the next morning. They were back like within an hour, I think. And that was it. Guilty on all 7 charges. And there you go. He'll be in jail for the rest of his life. Was it all about money? It's possible. I think the surface motivation was money. I think there are underlying motives that have to do more with family dynamics. Let's call it that. There was more to it than just money. People that want money don't always just go kill their parents. There's got to be something else to it. And I think that there was some issues with his lifestyle. There were certainly some issues with his stepsisters, things like that. He just felt like the outcast. He was obviously very entitled. There was a lot more family dynamics that we did not hear. In this case, I think what was louder for me about the family was what we did not hear as opposed to what we did hear, if that makes sense. Rosie, thank you so much for the super chat. I love the way you put the flowers on there. That is just so pretty. Thank you, Rosie. That made me smile. Thank you. Oh, Flame Lily says, if he wants the death penalty, maybe he instructed his defense attorney not to make an effort to defend him. That's possible, Flame Lily. However, the death penalty wasn't on the table anyway, so whether they defended him or not, he wasn't going to get that. But, true life. Well, right now, Tina, he has a life in prison for each charge. So 7 life in prison, whatever's. But there will be a hearing coming up where they're going to discuss, are these concurrent? So will he run all 7 together, or will there be one after another consecutive, which would be permanent life in prison? I did not hear the judge say life in prison without the possibility of parole. So, but I'm sure all of that's going to be hammered out at the sentencing hearing, which is coming up, I think, in November. I forget exactly when, but we'll hear about that. And then we'll be sentenced in November, right? So we'll have to wait and see. I'm pretty sure he's going to be in jail for the rest of his life. We also did get to see the victim impact statements, and those were kind of hard. Hold on one second. I have to cough again. Okay, so we did get to hear the victim impact statements. They read them in court, and that's it. That was the end of the trial. It was what, a 3-day trial, maybe 4 days tops? I think it was 3, and then the verdict the next day. It was very, very short. But yeah, I agree. Who was it that just said that? Let me scroll up in chat. Amy said, I think he just wanted to relive it in the courtroom. Amy, I agree completely. He seemed fascinated by the story of it that they were giving. He really seemed to enjoy looking at the forensic evidence, which is just crazy. But yeah, I think he just wanted a trial. Jess asked me the other day, well, why would he plead not guilty? Clearly he's guilty. And I said, because he just wanted a trial. I think he watched a lot of these TV shows, maybe Law and Order or CSI or whatever, and he wanted his own trial. He was fascinated by the process. That's the only reason he pled not guilty. He certainly didn't put up a good defense. They didn't even try to put up a defense, so I think he was just fascinated by it, and he wanted to have his trial. So, he certainly wasn't upset by it. How did the police first get called to the home? What happened was the mom, Lisa, who was just about to retire, she was set to retire, she missed a day of work where they had a big luncheon set up with a lot of coworkers, and her coworker called the police because she would never have missed that, and she certainly would have at least called. So they got worried about that. They called the police. The police showed up for the welfare check, noticed that there were cars in the driveway. They could hear the dog barking in the home. They could see and get nothing from the front door, so they went around to the back door and noticed that the doorknob had been taken off the back door, which is curious. So one of the officers looked in through the hole that would have been where the doorknob was, and they could see the bags of groceries on the floor in the front foyer. And then they got nervous enough, and so they gained entry into the home, and that's how they found everything. So, yeah, it was very, very crazy. The sentencing will be on November 19th. Thank you, Kathleen. I couldn't remember that date. So, yeah, we will check on that and see what happens. I'm pretty sure we're going to get, even if it's concurrent, as long as it's life in prison without parole, he'll be there forever. If they're concurrent with the possibility of parole, that might be different, but this judge seemed none too pleased with him. This judge really did not seem to like this guy so much. So I would guess that we're going to have life in prison without the possibility of parole. So, but we'll wait and see what happens on November 19th. So that's the Joel Guy Jr. trial. Again, tricky to say, but you can watch it on YouTube. There's a bunch of channels. You can still go back and see it. It was a very interesting trial to watch from the legal point of view, from the forensics, from the evidence, and certainly from the psychology. If you want to see some psychology at work, go watch Joel sit there watching this trial. It was crazy stuff. So, all right. Roxicolas, wasn't he insane? Nope, he was not insane. Now, remember, insanity has different definitions, depending on what you're talking about. If you're talking about criminal insanity, like, did he have the possibility of an insanity defense? Absolutely not. And the reason he couldn't have even tried that was that notebook. That showed premeditation, it showed organized thought, it showed logic, and it showed that he knew what he was going to do was wrong. So right there, he did not have the basis for a criminal insanity defense. Is he psychologically insane? Again, that depends on your definition of insanity. Does he have some personality disorders and big psychological issues? No doubt, no doubt. But, he'll have to deal with that some other way. The mom was about to retire, so he needed to kill her before she retired. The major insurance was before work. Yeah, she was just about to retire, and he knew about that. So, yeah. So there you go. That's the trial. Go ahead and watch it if you want to. We have a channel for it in Discord if you want to talk about it some more. It was kind of interesting. It's nice to have a nice short trial like that where you can see a whole bunch of stuff, get a whole lot of knowledge, because watching the legal process unfold like that, to me, is very fascinating. So it was good. If you want to talk about it, join us in Discord and we'll chat about it some more. But now I want to talk about something else that happened the other day. Actually, this happened kind of right in the middle of the trial. There's a new documentary released on Netflix, new Chris Watts documentary called, what is it called? Does anyone remember? The Murderer Next Door? Something like that. I forget what the actual name of it is, but let's talk about that. Have any of you seen it yet? Give me 1 second. I'm just going to take off the sweatshirt. But let me know in chat if you've seen this documentary yet. Okay. Sorry about that. It's getting warm in here. I overdressed for the live stream. Whew. All right. So some of you have seen it. Okay. This documentary. Now, I don't talk about the Chris Watts case on my channel, mainly because I wasn't doing YouTube at the time that this was a thing. I followed it very, very deeply during the whole process, but I didn't cover it. Whatever. I have a lot of thoughts about it. Paul and I did a couple podcasts about it a long time ago, right? But of course, this is one of those cases that will never go away. There will always be new documentaries and stuff for years. Okay. Now, I watched the documentary not knowing what to expect. I did not watch some of the more recent ones where, like, they just acted out the parts, or they hired actors. Somebody played Chris, somebody played Shanann. I'm not watching that. Nuh-uh. But this was different. What this documentary was, first, it's like completely devoid of narration. You don't have a narrator sitting there telling you what's happening and telling you what to think and telling you their idea of the facts. This is strictly, I guess, documentary evidence. They use a lot of the television interviews, like the Chris standing on the porch talking to the press. They use court documents. They use the police interviews, right, when Chris is interviewing with the CBI and FBI and stuff. So they use all of this documented video evidence, but they break it up into a very, step-by-step sort of way. So it kind of makes sense as a story. It flows pretty well. All right. But they used nothing that was really subjective, so to speak. And I liked that a lot because they kind of like put a lid on some of the crazy conspiracy theories that we hear about this case. They hit on it a little bit, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But they basically said, here's exactly what Chris said to the police. Here's exactly what Chris said to this. Here's what Shanann was talking about on Facebook. Here's her own videos. Here are her own text messages. So it was very factual as far as that side of it went. And I appreciated that. That's not something we get a lot with a lot of these documentaries. So that was really good. What I think in general is if you didn't follow the case, right, if you weren't really into all of it when it was exploding here all over YouTube and all over the internet and all over the world, this is a great documentary to figure out what happened. You know, someone says, well, what was that case all about? Send them this documentary. This is the one they should watch. Okay. It'll teach you a whole lot about the case. But it removes a lot of the crazier stuff. But they hit on a few things a little lightly. Would have liked to have seen a little bit more about his relationship with Nicole Kessinger, a little bit more about Chris and Shanann's financial situation, other things that may have played into the case a little bit more. But you know, they were hands off a few things, but I still thought it was pretty good. But they did talk about something that I thought was pretty interesting. I'm not going to name names because if you know, then you already know. And if you don't know, well, it was a long time ago, so we'll leave it at that. But they talked about YouTube, sort of. They talked about how the internet and social media had sort of metastasized into this crazy cauldron of conspiracy theories about the case. And they played some audio from a live stream that several people were on that I happen to know who were arguing about Shanann. And one of them was saying, oh, Shanann's a narcissist. She drove Chris to do those terrible things. It's her fault. And the other one replied with, are you serious? Are we doing victim blaming now? We're not doing that. So they just showed that a little like 30-second clip of that. And I thought that was fascinating. First, that they even put it in the documentary, because I wouldn't have thought that that was worthy of a documentary like this. But they clearly wanted to show how crazy the internet went with this case. And I was very surprised by that. Wasn't sure what to make of it. Certainly glad I was not involved in that mess, because that was ugly. That was very ugly. But so I thought it was a decent documentary. I did like that they included just about all the big important stuff. I didn't like that it was chopped up into more of a narrative thing, because if I'm going to watch a police interview, I want to watch it from the second the camera goes on to the second the camera's turned off without interruption, right? So I can get a full picture of what's happening. They didn't do that, but then again, they couldn't really make a 12-hour-long documentary, I suppose, which is what I would prefer. But I think for someone just wanting to look at the basics of the case, it's probably the best documentary we have for people that want to get what really happened there. Well, here's the basics. Start with this, you know. But of course, as you know, the entire body of discovery, minus the few things that were sealed, such as the autopsy records, is released, and you can access it publicly. So there you go. You can find all of that. But it was an interesting documentary. I think it's worth watching. You know, of course, if you followed the case deeply, you won't need to watch it. There won't be anything new for you. But, I saw nothing that I hadn't already seen 100 times before. But they did put it in a nice, neat order, and it made sense. And yeah, I thought they got the point across pretty clearly. So, um, I don't know who was involved behind the scenes with the documentary. They do show Shanann's family. They show Chris's parents briefly, but I don't know if they were actually involved in the creation of it. So, one sec, let me cough again. Okay, sorry about that. Pamela said she wouldn't watch the movie. I didn't watch the movie either. Are you talking about the what was it? Lifetime or something? What channel did a movie about it with the character actors? I refuse to watch that. Not for me. So, yeah, check that out for that documentary. Erna talks about the 48 hours on CBS. We did talk about that at the start of the live stream, but I'll go over it again. Tonight at 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern, you can watch a new 48 hours episode on the Vallow Daybell case. I'm going to be watching it. That is the main case that I am following right now, and it should be good. They're teasing in some of their teaser text some untold information. I don't think that's actually the case, but it would be hard pressed for me to believe that they're going to have something I haven't seen or heard yet, but we'll see. I'm going to watch it. They may have a new interview with someone. Who knows? Maybe Melanie Gibbs doing another interview. That would be something, wouldn't it? Goodness. Oh, I hope not. Please, Melanie, don't do that. But yeah, so that's going to be on tonight. We're probably going to talk about it during the week, so give that a watch. If you don't have access to cable or TV or whatever, it should be on the CBS website tomorrow. I don't have a link to it. It's through television. I don't know if you have CBS over there in Australia. I don't know. It should be on, if you have anything like YouTube TV or I have a Spectrum TV. Maybe you have Sling TV, which is that internet cable thing. It'll be on there. And tomorrow it should be on the CBS website. So, and someone's going to have it up on YouTube. So it's going to be it's on TV, Lori, unless you have like internet cable. Like Spectrum is my cable company, so I can watch it on my computer. I have the cable website, but I have to log into that. So, but CBS usually puts these things, the full episodes, up on their own website the next day. So you should be able to see it tomorrow, or you should certainly be able to find it on YouTube. Somebody will put it up somewhere. They will. All right, now, so the Vallow case. The only information that's new, that's not even new, there's the 48 hours episode tonight. We still have heard nothing else except for the fact that Chad has his hearings coming up on October 29th. Nothing new has happened all week. Although there's one thing. Colby Ryan does have a new video up on his YouTube channel. Link. My goodness. Jess, do you have a link to Colby's YouTube? I didn't get it out before I started. He changed the name of his YouTube channel, and now it's not called The Ryans. He has a new video up that he put about trying to be happy, trying to find happiness in life after something like this. It's a great video. If Jess can find the link, she'll put it up in chat for you. Please go check it out because I like Colby. He's a great guy. So that's all that we know about the Vallow case right now. So nothing new happening. However, there is something else new happening out in YouTube land that I really want to talk to you about. And I'm actually going to bring on a special guest to come talk to you because why not? That's fun. Where is she? Let me get her a link to the thingy. As you know, my partner in crime, my sister, my twin, my spirit animal is Jess Nelson, and Jess has finally started her own YouTube channel. It's called Know Better, Do Better, based on the poem by Maya Angelou, who is an amazing is an amazing woman. So I want to bring Jess on. We're going to talk a little bit about her channel and what it's about, and get you some links to it so you can go sub over there. I'm really excited. And she'll be on in just a second as soon as she clicks the link. All right, if you look in chat, there is a link to Colby's YouTube channel from Jess Nelson. So please go ahead and sub over there. Give him a watch on that video. I support Colby and what he's doing, and I wish him all the best in his life going forward. It's going to be a rough time for him. So, yeah, let's support Colby. And Jess, I did send you a link to StreamYard, so whenever you're ready, you can come on and we could talk about your channel. It says October 29th is Chad's next hearing, that we have the motion to dismiss, possibly the motion for joinder, although, because some people are telling me, oh, they said it's the motion for joinder. It doesn't say that, okay? The judge's orders do not say that. The docket does not say motion for joinder, but there is another motion scheduled for 10 a.m. after the motion to dismiss, so it quite possibly is. And I will bring that to you live when that happens. And here comes Jess. There you are. Hi.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. All right.
Yay.
Green. All right, everyone say hi to Jess. This is Jess Nelson. Neither of us are on camera tonight. Please forgive us for that. We'll get better eventually, but I'm just not feeling so good. So, Jess, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good. I put Ginger up so you guys don't have to listen to her snore.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, tell me what the goal of your new channel is, because I'm so excited about this.
Um, way back when I found Paul, I was like, oh my gosh, he looks like he's having so much fun. I want a YouTube channel. And then I met Awen, and then I thought, I don't know. I'm not Awen. I don't know that I could do a channel. And so I kind of thought about it. It's been on the back burner for like a year and a half. I don't know. Definitely over a year. Trying to think of what my niche would be. And I talked to a lot of people about it, and I kind of thought, I don't want a true crime channel because I talk about it with you and I talk about it with Paul. I don't want another one to handle, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of thought about my life, and I've had some really bad medical scares, and I've still got kids at home, you know? And so I thought, what have I not told them? And, I don't want to do this like download dump because mom's sick, to some teenage boys. And I thought, well, maybe you should tell some stories and talk about some things that you've learned from other people, and maybe a YouTube channel instead of some creepy 5 hour long video in case you die would be a better idea. So it's hopefully it will turn out to be an upbeat kind of life lesson, funny stories, some serious stuff. I've worked with domestic violence victims. I've been through narcissistic abuse, which a lot of us have. I've been through a lot of stuff: custody, divorces, marriages, military. I'm a military wife, homeschooled kids, got teenage boys. I've learned a little bit. That's the goal. We'll see how it turns out.
Well, I think it's going to be wonderful. First, even though someone may accuse me of being a covert narcissist, I am going to interrupt and say, Curious Cat, thank you for the super chat. That sticker is adorable. Thank you so much. I appreciate it greatly.
Yay.
Now, as far as you, Jess, one of the things that I love is that I go to you when I need like a worldview opinion of something. I'm like, I'm struggling with this. I don't get it. What am I missing? I bring it to you, and you seem to put it in a context that suddenly it just makes a lot of sense to me. Your worldly knowledge is far more than I think you even give yourself credit for. I rely on you for that sort of advice constantly. I am so excited to see you put your life lessons out there for the public, because I mean, it's something I'm going to make sure my daughter watches it. It's like, you need to know this stuff. Watch this now, So I'm really, really excited to see this happening.
Yay. I think that's my INFJ showing. Apparently, that's a thing.
Yep, it is a
Look at
thing.
things a little bit different.
Mm. And oddly, maybe not oddly, we are both tested for INFJ, which is really
Yep.
rare. And the fact that we managed to find each other is kind of amazing to me.
Yep.
So I am extraordinarily appreciative. That's the word I want, to have you in my life and to have your channel starting. And I just hope you all sub to it because, yeah, like Curious Cat said, Jess has a sense of humor that, oh man, it is the best. It is the best.
It gets me in trouble sometimes.
Sometimes that's what we need. We need to hear that. Uh, so yeah, I hope that you all check it out. Her first video is up already, so you can watch it. It's a nice introduction, gives you a bit of information about who Jess is. A lot of you here know her because she's been with Paul's channel for over a year now. She's been
Yeah.
with mine since I went started. She's also in Discord, so if you want to get to chat with her, come join our Discord channel. You can talk that. And what is that? Oh my God. Boop.
What's what?
Sorry, chat. Yeah,
Mm.
Jess is live, so I had to take over the moderation there for a second and get rid of that. My goodness.
Oh, wow. That's nice.
Yeah.
We're famous, Awen. We're famous.
Yes, we are. Look at that.
Good grief.
So, Jess, are you going to be with us for the upcoming Vallow stuff? Are you excited about those hearings?
Oh, yeah. You can't get me off of this stuff.
Mm.
Dan came home from work and he's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh my gosh, they started the court trials back. I've been stuck on this all day." And he's like, "Oh, really? Where's it at?" And I was like, 10 minutes up the road. I said, "You
Mhm.
can watch our Walmart surveillance footage." It was really, really creepy for that to have been right next to me.
That must be. I remember with some cases when I hear of something that happened like in a place where I have been, like
Yeah.
you see video of them shopping in the Walmart where you shop. That
Yeah.
must be really creepy. That makes it a lot more real.
Yeah. I feel bad because, okay, we've talked about 3 Knoxville cases. This one, the baby Evelyn, who hasn't done any court stuff yet, but that's coming. And then the one about the Newsom kids that were the UT college
Mhm.
boyfriend and girlfriend that like 5 people murdered heinously.
Right.
And it's like, I swear we're not a city full of psychopaths. We're actually normal over here. But, the 3 cases have been horrendous so far.
Yeah, that's what everyone from Colorado says. We're really
Yeah,
nice
no
here.
kidding.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're not going there.
Yeah.
One of our other mods is driving across the country recently. And I'm like, please don't go through Colorado. Just
Yeah.
go around it, please.
Big detour. Go to Idaho. Sit outside the FBI place. There's some cute looking guys coming out of there.
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
Jess's channel is called Know Better, Do Better. And House of
Yeah.
Stacey, if you scroll up a little or watch chat for a minute, I'm sure one of the mods will drop another link to it so you can find it and go sub there. The first video is up and there's more on the way. I hope.
Yep.
No pressure.
I'm working on 2 videos at the same time, and we'll see which one gets finished first. So one is going to be about, I'm going to talk about the boy mom dates I used to take my little kids on to teach them how to treat a lady and to plan a date and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm interviewing my mom, which some of you guys know was founded and opened the domestic violence shelter in our county. And we're going to talk about some of the work that she did, how to help people that are in a domestic violence crisis, what to do if you're in one, how you can help, what resources they are, things you might not think about, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to interview my mother, and you'll see where I get it. She's really funny too.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear from your mom. I've grown to love your mom, and I haven't even met her yet, so she's wonderful. I'm excited about a lot of the stuff that I hope we can do together. As you know,
Yeah.
with toxic bliss and narcissism recovery, one of the reasons that you and I bonded is we have very similar backstories
Yep.
recovering from narcissistic abuse. And that's something that as the trials sort of quiet down, I want to get back onto focusing. And hopefully we'll have a lot more collaborative conversations about that and really get that going. But for you to be able to share stuff like your work and your mother's work on your channel is just so exciting. I
Yep.
cannot wait to see it.
Yeah, people don't. I mean, sometimes you kind of forget when you're tied up in true crime. These horrible murders that we see, they're never really classified, but if you think about it, they are domestic violence. You know, sometimes it's a long term abuse thing, and some of them, this has been the first physical manifestation and they've killed somebody. But, these people that kill their families, kill their kids, kill their spouse, that's domestic violence. And narcissism goes with that major. Most of the cases of domestic violence involve a narcissist, and it's something that they do not talk about in domestic violence, which is really weird.
Hmm.
There's not enough education with the law enforcement, with the court system. A lot of the domestic violence literature and training does not involve it, and it's crazy. So hopefully we'll get to talk about that quite a bit.
Yeah, it's something that definitely needs to be brought more in the forefront. Certainly with Toxic Bliss, I get so many comments saying, Awen, you're telling my story. I lived that. This is
Yeah,
helping me so much. And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize it was going to have that kind of an impact. So I really want to get back to that and focus on it because so many of us go through these situations. Like when I went through it, I had no idea what a narcissist was. I had never heard of this. If I had known, if I had known what the red flags were, it might have been different. So bringing awareness to it, I think, is one of my big goals in life.
absolutely. And it's on the rise. With the social media kind of generation, it feeds into it. Not necessarily the narcissistic personality disorder, but narcissism in general is definitely on the rise. And so is the domestic violence with all of these quarantine pandemic stuff. So it's a big button issue right now. Child abuse, depression, domestic violence, all that stuff. Yep.
Yep. So we'll be talking a lot about that on both channels. We're doing some collabs. Certainly, I'll be staying on all of the cases that we're covering. I'll be covering the Vallow case as that comes up. The
Yep.
Gannon Stout case with the
Oh,
trial of
that's my
Letitia Stout.
case.
That should be going pretty soon. We'll be covering anything that happens with Letitia, Michael Wayne Jones Jr., which we haven't talked too much about because there has been nothing happening in that case for a year now. But
Yep.
as soon as we get some news, we'll do some background videos on that to get you up to date on the story with that. That's a fascinating case, and that is a huge narcissistic domestic abuse case
Major. Yeah.
hugely. So we'll definitely be looking into that. There's a lot of other cases that as they come up, we'll be covering them. So we'll do the true crime. And I really like that you have such a positive focus on your channel where I feel like I've got all this nasty true crime stuff, these
Yeah.
horrible details. Sometimes you need a break and you need something uplifting.
Yep.
So it's great that we can cover all those different kinds of bases. So
Yep.
yeah.
Looking forward to it.
So I want to know what you thought of the Watch documentary, the new one.
I didn't watch it. I've
Oh, there you
seen so much Watt stuff. Like talking about a medical thing, I was on a ventilator. um, and when I came off of it, I couldn't talk and stuff because like the things in your throat when you're intubated kind of paralyze themselves voluntarily.
go. Hmm.
And it was that Thanksgiving weekend when they did all of the discovery dump. And so I'd had my husband bring my tablet to the hospital because that's all I could do. And I dug into it. Like I woke up and there it was, and it was all over YouTube. And I was obsessed for a straight year. Obsessed. That's all I talked about. Drove my husband crazy.
Hmm.
But I think after the Sherilyn Cadle book came out and we saw what a crap show that was, I kind of had him pegged, I guess, and I didn't need any more answers. And so I quit. I don't watch stuff about him anymore.
I don't
I
blame
just
you.
quit.
Yep, I haven't watched anything in probably a year.
Yeah.
But I heard someone else talking about this documentary say, this is the best one. I was like, all right, I'll go watch it. But I was like rolling my eyes before I started it. But I felt very positive about it afterwards. So that's
Yeah.
unusual. That
Yeah.
was a new thing.
I
So
figured I would, but after you told me that it was really a lot of just the discovery documents and video and stuff, it's like, yeah, I don't need that.
yeah, it's nothing that you don't already know for sure.
Yeah.
But so Anyway, so that's all that's going on, guys. I am going to stop this live stream a little shorter than normal because I do want to get ready for the 48 hours. So I do want to watch that tonight
Yay. Yep.
because this Vallow case, yes, it's been quiet, but this is still a huge, huge deal. Certainly something I'm laser focused on. So I'm going to watch this episode. I'm going to rip it apart and see what we get out of it. Any new information. But I'll probably have a video up about it tomorrow, talking about what I thought about it, any important points, all that good stuff. And please join us in Discord because we have ongoing conversations around the clock. It's totally free, so we can hash it out all there. And that'll be lots of fun.
I
What
think
else
we
is going
should
on?
I think we should start a domestic violence thing in your Discord, like just a channel. Maybe we can put some information there.
Yeah, we have to. One of the things that we are going to have to address as a community is we
Right.
have so many people who have been through these types of situations, and we would like to offer a support system, but we have to be careful because we're not going to be a therapy session, right?
Yeah.
None of the people involved, none of us are therapists, psychologists, psychotherapists. We cannot give you therapy. We can support you and hold your hand and say, yeah, we've been through it too. I know it sucks, but we cannot be offering therapy to people because we're not therapists. So it's a difficult thing to handle in a public situation like that. But there are a lot of people in this community who have been through it, who understand what you're feeling. And if you feel the need to reach out and have some friendly faces around that get you, it's a great place to be. So yeah, we'll do that in Discord.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm so excited about your channel. All right, guys, we are going to end it here, but thank you all for being here. Thanks to everyone for the super chats. They really mean the world to me, and they help me be able to keep doing stuff like this. And there's a lot more coming. So we will be around, and I'm probably going to talk to you tomorrow about the 48 hours episode. Hope you get to watch it. And thank you for being here, and we will talk to you all very soon.
Bye, guys.
Good night.